Hey guys, Victor here coming at you with another video, and for today's video we're going to be doing a combo video where I'm going to attempt to show you like proper lines and combos that you can take using your Tearlaments, your Lightsworns, and your Fiendsmith cards. And as for the reason why I decided to lump them all together, well, the fact of the matter is both decks are basically the same for the most part, right? As they're not very linear in what they're able to do. It's very much a play as you go basis. And what I mean by that is that even though there are some specific things that you should be aiming to do, unlike a deck such as like Snake Eyes or Sword Soul or Tempai or whatever, we don't have set guidelines. Everything can pretty much just change at the drop of a hat depending on what you mill, what you're not able to mill, what your hand looks like, a card that you potentially draw, and then will just completely change the way that you approach your end board. And not to mention that a lot of the concepts are basically going to be the same no matter if you're playing Lightsworn or Tearlament. So that's one of the main reasons why I just decided to lump them together. But even so, I hope this is like informational, or at least it helps someone do something, you know, because both of these decks are pretty complicated in the grand scheme of things. As like I said, there's no set combos, there's no like proper flow chart that you should be following. So with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. Now, as far as combos are concerned, this deck quite literally only has one specific combo that you can accomplish. And it's usually some combination of these cards, right? So you're for sure going to need the Weiss to go into the full Fiendsmith engine. But then depending on if you have like a Wolf or a Dragonling, you're able to do a lot more. So I just kind of want to like showcase the entire extent that you can do with just these three cards. So yeah, let me just move these to the side really quick and just get this like as if it's starting right now. So we're going to activate our Weiss, Lightsworn, Archfiend, for example. We're going to stack our Wolf on top of the deck, and then we're going to mill one additional card in addition to the Wolf, right? It doesn't really matter, but then the Wolf will activate, special summoning itself. And then here, you have a couple of choices, right? So you can either go straight for the Fiendsmith engine, or you can go into your Minerva play, and it really just does depend on like what your hand looks like, right? But for this specific variant, I think we're going to go straight into the Fiendsmith engine first, just because it does offer us a little bit more protection. So as a result, we're going to be linking the Weiss, Lightsworn, Archfiend off into our Fiendsmith Requiem. Put that over there. And then Requiem's effect will trigger, tributing itself to special summon Fiendsmith Engraver from our deck. Next, we're going to be equipping Engraver with our Requiem, and then we're going to send these two to the grave in order to summon our Necroquip Princess. You know, pretty standard stuff, nothing too out of the ordinary when it comes to the Fiendsmith engine itself, especially because we did lose Beatrice, which did hamper like a lot of the control, or not control, but the, I guess that is the proper word, but not like in the sense that you're thinking of. By saying control, I mean more like the way that we're able to operate the deck. Just because we don't have like we can't specifically choose something to send, right? We can't send our Zuliaks, we can't send Trivy Karmas, we can't do anything like that. But even so, this is still perfectly fine. Next, we're going to activate our Engraver to special summon itself back, I guess this is going to be like another major decision that you have, right? So you can choose between the Weiss and you can choose between the Requiem, just because this is a light fiend that you can recycle back, right? And there are certain times where you want to put back the Weiss, Lightsworn, Archfiend, just because, for example, say you opened multiples or you opened all your copies, right? You want this card in your deck and at least one copy to be able to accomplish this entire combo. So if times do get that desperate, obviously you shuffle back the Weiss, but if not, you're typically going to be shuffling back the Requiem, just because it allows you to have like a little bit more of an easier grind game on the chance that your opponent's able to break your board on the follow-up. So for this situation, we're going to put the Requiem back, and we're going to leave the Weiss in the graveyard. Then from here, we're going to make a rank 6 into DDD Wave High King Caesar. This is basically just going to help us prevent cards like Nibiru and any potential bestial monsters that your opponent may be holding, because you never know, some people do end up holding the bestial monsters, especially once they see the tier engine for games 2 and 3, just because the Tearlaments are a lot more impactful in the long run. But if your hand is weak, for example, and all you really did was have Weiss in your hand, because this entire combo can still be done with just the Weiss, right? Say we don't have the Dragonling or the Wolf, all you got to do is normal summon Weiss, and that's still full Fiendsmith engine into the instant Wave High King Caesar. And in that scenario, sometimes if you don't want to make Caesar and your hand is obviously weak because you had to start with normal summon Weiss, then you go for Pilgrim Reaper and you gamble on the mill 5. But if your hand is gassed like this, then Caesar is highly preferred. But even so with this, now we activate our Dragonling to special summon itself. Dragonling's effect will activate to send a monster, and we're going to be sending Felice this time to grave. Felice's effect will activate to bring itself back, and then we're going to be synchro summoning for 8. It doesn't matter which one you summon with, they're both fine, honestly, but we're just going to be using Wolf for this scenario. And with that, we're going to be special summoning Minerva, the Athenian Lightsworn, and then Minerva's effect will activate, where it will in turn send a Weiss Lightsworn Archfiend and a Wolf Lightsworn Beast to the graveyard. So your Wolf will activate because it's mandatory as Chainlink 1, and then your Weiss's graveyard effect will activate as Chainlink 2 to bring back your Felice. So you special summon those, and you special summon this. Then after that, we're going to synchro again, and this time we're going to be making Visas Amritara, who on summon is able to search out for any spell or trap that mentions Vis of Starfrost. And so with that card, we're going to be adding our Primeval Planet Perla Rhino. And then we're going to be activating our Primeval Planet Perla Rhino to add Rhino Heart to hand. We're just going to put that to the side right now. Then after that, we're going to be Exceed summoning into the Zombie Vampire. And then we're going to be detaching a material. It doesn't matter which one, whether it's Minerva or Visas, it literally just does not matter. And then we're going to be milling 4 more cards. The 4 cards literally do not matter, but we're just going to put them there. And then what does matter is that you special summon something else so that you can get another body on the field. Although it's not always going to be the case, right? Sometimes you're just going to mill 4 spells and traps for both you and your opponent, as unlikely as it may seem. So this is where like the extra body comes in. But if you don't have like the Dragonling extender or whatever, then it's very important that you get another body, because we have to link this off in order to make Rhinoheart have like an easier time with his fusion summoning. But yeah, from here, we're going to link these 2 off. If you have the space for IP Masquerena, this would be when you make it. But because we don't, we're going to be summoning SP Little Knight instead. And because you used an extra deck monster, you're able to banish a card out of your opponent's graveyard because you didn't make the mill 4. And this is really important in helping get rid of key resources, right? Say, for example, you mill a Snake Eyes Ash from your opponent. Making the Little Knight and then banishing the Ash permanently is just invaluable at helping you like accomplish your game plans and win the game as smoothly as possible. But yeah, with that, we can finally use our normal summon. And so we're going to be normal summoning Rhinoheart, and Rhinoheart's effect will activate. And with that, it doesn't matter which one you send. Typically, I like sending Havness just because I feel like it's the weakest one to use on your first turn. But for all intents and purposes, we're just going to be sending Rhinoheart this time, or I mean Sharon this time. Then you're going to be activating your Sharon's effect, fusioning back Sharon plus the Zombie Vampire. It's a dark monster, which is very important for what we're trying to do. So you put those back, put the Sharon back into the bottom of the deck, and then you're going to summon your Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Then we're going to be overlaying these 2 into a Bahamut Shark. Forgive me, I don't have mine currently. I don't know where it is, but it's fine. So just pretend this is Bahamut Shark, and then you're going to be activating your Bahamut Shark's effect to special summon out Totally Awesome. As for what you detach, I like detaching Mud Dragon of the Swamp, especially because there's no like Beast King of the Swamps or anything that we know of so far in here, just because it allows you to have like an easier time fusion summoning later on in the game. But a lot of the times the Bahamut Shark does get like linked off, for example, right? So it's not like the end of the world or anything, but yeah, this is just like the basic end board off of those 1 to potential 3 cards that you could have in your hand. So you have like the SP Little Knight or IP Masquerena, a Wave High King Caesar, or like a Pilgrim Reaper that you will be linking off if you leave it there. You have the Bahamut Shark, which is probably also potentially going to be linked off, but if not, that does open up the possibility for you being able to activate like your Totally Awesome, add itself back to the extra deck, and then if the Bahamut Shark survives, you can detach again to bring the Toad out for a second time. So you have a lot of different avenues that you can take with this deck, which I think is honestly really cool. And I guess now that you have like the general basis of what you should be doing, it's time to finally see the deck like in actual action. So we're going to be giving the deck a proper shuffle to help ensure that the hands are as accurate as possible to like a real life game, because let's face it, if I give myself like the broken hand, you don't really learn much, if I'm being brutally honest. I'd rather just show you like the goods and the cons that you will be facing as like a Lightsworn or a Tearlament player, just because I feel like that kind of information helps you out a lot more than just seeing everything go correctly. But even so, just got to shuffle really quickly to ensure that it's as fair as possible. So just bear with me. And 40 cards. Cool. Just gotta make sure every card is in there. And then I still prefer pile shuffling, just to be honest. I feel like it's the most fair way to randomize a deck, despite what others say. And then we got to give it a couple more of these. You know, got to make our opponent think we're stalling. No, not really, but still. Okay, and with that, now we can draw our starting 5 being Weiss, Primeval Planet Pearl Rhino, Triple Tactics Talent, Wolf, Lightsworn Beast, and Mudora. So besides the Mudora, it's honestly a pretty stacked hand. But now you may be wondering, how exactly do you want to approach this? So there's a couple things that we can do. And this is always like one of the hardest parts, right? Because there's always so many different options that you can take that you don't really know the best method to approach it. But with the way that this hand is shaping up, I feel like probably starting with the Weiss is best. So as a result, we're going to take the Wolf and we're going to stack it on top. And then we're going to use Special Summoning the Weiss. But I guess if you want to like make it a little bit harder, we could, I don't know, gamble a bit and say that we got ashed, right? So then you just look at your opponent's hand with talents, rip a card out of their hand, and then you can just like normal summon the Weiss and then go for a full Fiendsmith combo for either probably Pilgrim Reaper in this specific scenario. And then you still have like your Pilgrim Reaper mill 5 plus a Primeval Planet Pearl Rhino, which is more than likely going to add Tearlament Sharon just so that you can get this into the grave. So yeah, let's do that, honestly. So let's say we got ashed, right? So this is still in our hand because it's not special summoned and the Wolf is stacked onto our deck. So we're going to go normal the Weiss, link it off, make our Requiem, and then Requiem's effect. We'll special summon out Engraver. And then obviously we use the talents, right? Like I said, that was the whole point of us getting Ash, so that we can look at our opponent's hand and have full knowledge, just because this is a concept that not a lot of people understand, but having full knowledge of your opponent's hand can just straight up win you the game in so many scenarios, right? Just because it allows you to effectively play around everything that they may have. And then in addition to like just being able to rip a card out, you know pretty much exactly the field that you need to make, and you only really need to account for the random top deck that they're going to have on the follow-up. But even so, okay, so now we're gonna Requiem, put on the Engraver, blah blah blah. You know the drill. Make our Necro Quip, and then we're gonna activate our Engraver, special summoning it out by returning the Requiem in this scenario, just because we don't really have any, any issues with the other stuff. And then from here, we're gonna activate our Primeval Planet Pearl Rhino to add our Sharon. The order of operations doesn't really matter. Especially because we now know our opponent's hand. But let's just say that we got rid of the only other hand trap. I feel like this is probably like the best way to go about it. Then we are going to overlay. But because we need to extend and gamble, we are going to make Pilgrim Reaper first. Now you'll be wondering, what is the proper card to detach? And the correct answer is actually Necroquip Princess. So we've already used our Engraver's Graveyard effect, but we haven't, since we've used our Engraver's effect, that means that getting into the grave at some point just doesn't matter anymore at this point, just because we don't play sequence or anything like that. So we're going to be detaching the Necroquip Princess because it happens to be a dark monster. That means that we can, if we mill like a Rhino Heart, for example, we can bring back our Rhino Heart, discard the Sharon, and then fusion summon for our Mud Dragon to make Bahamut Shark. So it is pretty important to actually get this one into the grave beforehand. If you're making the Pilgrim Reaper, if you're making Wave Caesar, then obviously it doesn't matter. But even so, let's see, we deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty okay. These two saved it. And then for this, we're probably going to go Chainlink 1, Tear Cache, Chainlink 2, Soliak, just because you want to once like you're milling and you hit like the Soliak, you typically want to make the Chainlink 2 just so that you can specifically add a card to hand. And the card that you're pretty much always going to be adding is Tearlament's Kashtira. Just because you've already used up your normal summon, right? So adding something like a Rhino Heart or even like a Havness doesn't really matter. But yeah, so we're just going to add the Tear Cache here, and then we're going to mill 2 after we're done shuffling. So we mill 2 more. It's a Call by the Grave and a Weiss, and we don't have any Lightsworn monsters in there right now, so this card is basically worthless. But it's fine, whatever. Next, we're going to be activating our Sharon. So it's actually pretty important here to mill or to activate Sharon before you activate the Tearlament's Kashtira for a couple of reasons. The main one being that if you do end up milling like a Rhino Heart, for example, you can activate the Rhino Heart and then chain the Tear Cache to it to special summon both. But if you activate the Tear Cache and mill a Rhino Heart, then you basically just lose out on the Sharon, and then you're stuck with the Mudora in your hand, which is something that you typically want to avoid at all costs. So we're going to special summon Sharon, discarding Mudora, and then hopefully we mill a Rhino Heart. We got a Scream, another Scream, and a Beast King of the Swamps, which honestly, not terrible. We're going to be activating our screen this time to add a copy of Tearlament Solyak to our hand. And then from here, you have a couple of things that you can do, right? So you have a Tear Cache in your grave. So if worse comes to, like push comes to shove, we can just Mudora, shuffle it back, and then pop our Sharon to Fusion Summon. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that, but it's looking pretty likely that it will. And then like another debate, right, is I guess we'll just play it first and see if we can mill another Rhinoheart. So we're going to activate our Tear Cache. And then what I like to banish is typically going to be like the Solyak, just so that you get a little more value out of cards like Tearlament's Grief, right? Because when Tearlament's Grief is sent to the graveyard, you're able to add a banish trap. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to mill 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is one of the main things that I was talking about, where there's like a very big decision that you're going to have to make here, where you have to choose between making the Rhinoheart and keeping the Solyak in your hand. Just because like without the Grief, we basically have no way to get this back. But even so, I think the proper play to make would definitely be, I don't know, it's rough. I guess it really does determine on how much you value cards like Bahamut and Toad, which, I mean, you should value it pretty highly, if I'm being honest. So I guess we're just gonna activate Rhinoheart as much as I'd rather not. And we're gonna send Solyak to the grave, and then we're gonna activate Rhinoheart's effect. And from here, we're gonna send Havness. So once again, you're faced with the dilemma of what exactly should you be fusion summoning, right? Well, for sure, on this hand, your opponent has 3 cards, so you're gonna know if this was the correct play to make, if not, or if like keeping the Solyak was instead correct. Just because like we can always like fusion summon off of the Sharon with our Mudora shuffle, but we're just gonna assume that making the fusion is a lot more valuable to us than having the potential negate with Solyak. So we send the Havness, and then we have a couple choices, right? So with Havness, because we have the Beast King of the Swamp, we can go straight for Ruokolos, or because we play the Rhinoheart, or we have the Rhinoheart, we can go in for Kaleido Heart, and then with the Kaleido, we can like destroy the whatchamacallit. We can destroy the Kaleido Heart to bring it back, or on top of that, we could also go for the Mud Dragon play because we have the Necroquip Princess in the grave. Like I said, there's a lot of decision making that needs to be made, but since you have basically full knowledge of what your opponent's hand looks like, it should be a little bit more easier to manage, in my opinion. But even so, I think for this one, if they only have like 3 cards in hand, then they typically, I don't want to say lose to this, but I guess it's worth a shot. So whether this, even though this may not be optimal, what we're gonna do is actually we're gonna make Kaleido Heart. So that means this gets banished, and these 2 go back into the deck. And then you make your Kaleido Heart. And then you special summon your Kaleido Heart, and then your Planet's effect is going to pop the Kaleido Heart. Kaleido Heart's effect is going to bring itself back. And then what we're going to be sending this time is Tearlament's Grief. Just because I really do value the Solyak a lot more than the Bahamut Toad in a lot of situations, just because I feel like it allows you to, like if you, for example, say your opponent has like a full hand of monsters, right? The Solyak is going to be really important. So we're going to get this back with our Grief, and then we're going to set those. And then we're going to just link these 2 away into, if you have the IP Masquerena, you make the IP Masquerena, obviously, but if you don't, then SP Little Knight is still a really solid option, just to help you, banish a card and just help you go straight to the end phase when they activate something. So off of that, and that's with us getting like hand trapped and resolving a talents, right? If we didn't get hand trapped, then this board would be way crazier. But even through that, I'd still say this is pretty good, right? So you have your Solyak negate, you have an SP Little Knight banish for itself and something else or another monster you control. Depending on what you send, whether it's like Kaleido Heart, you can send the Kaleido Heart, then Foolish, and then you get like a fusion summon, so you're going to be able to, let's say you send Havness again, right? So you get your send Havness again, so you're going to get to Kaleido Spin, the Planet Pop, and the Havnus Fusion Summon, which is probably going to be making Dragos Tapelia if I'm being honest. So you have 1 negate, 2 negate, a bounce, a pop, and another banish, which if your opponent only has 4 starting cards, it's very unlikely that they're actually going to win, just because, you know, 4 cards typically just isn't enough to deal with 5 interactions. But yeah, and with that, that's the combo video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more, please let me know, because this was honestly pretty fun to make, and I'd love to try it again sometime in the future. But until then, I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!